Coming up right now, the newest episode from Car, Gwyn, and Ode on Three Pagans and a Cat.
If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. Welcome to First Steps, Grounding, Centering, and Shielding, the 20th episode of Three Pagans and a Cat. Our opening today is courtesy of 19th century philosopher Henry David Thoreau. You may call me Ode.
You can call me Car, and I'm Ode's father.
Merry meet, my name is Gwyn, Ode's mother.
Yay!
We did it!
Nobody laughed.
Yeah.
Except now.
It's episode 20, so that's kind of an anniversary.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. And besides, it was a very
We didn't end up moving this
effective
weekend,
quote.
so we were able to record on time.
Yeah. Although we're moving next weekend.
We're moving next weekend, but that's not going to interfere with our recording schedule, probably.
Probably.
Right.
Because it's
Hopefully we'll
the
get it all
next.
set back up.
Hopefully we'll
No
be able to set up in that week, and our recording schedule will not be affected by this move.
Well, the good news is I won't have an hour and a half drive back
Exactly.
from
That's
work
true.
to home. I'll have like a 2-minute walk.
Exactly, that'll help tremendously.
The biggest concern will be technical difficulties
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
transferring of everything.
Yeah, getting everything set up, getting the internet turned on.
Exactly. I've got all of that ready to go.
Yeah.
It just is going to be a matter of us getting it set up.
And then getting, like, furniture
Yeah.
inside the house.
That'll all-
Those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
little,
You know, the
little
fun
things,
things
yeah.
of moving.
Yeah. Here at the top of the episode, we are going to do our housekeeping stuff.
Yep.
First of all, we have a new patron who has actually joined us in the
Recording.
recording and patron
Yeah.
questions channel this week.
Lorelei,
Hello, Lorelei.
Hi, Lorelei.
welcome.
It's nice to meet you.
Yes.
Thank you for your patronage.
Yes, thank you very much.
We also had a new kitten.
Yes,
Yes.
we had a new kitten whose name we don't say, but we do love you.
We love you, kittens.
It's a good thing we don't say it because I didn't write it down. No, it's on the website.
But we love them.
Yep, we do.
We got listener feedback form, which we get quite often. I just never read them.
We get feedback from listeners pretty regularly, and I love all of it.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
we very
yeah.
much
Yeah.
appreciate the
Even
feedback.
the people who are like, "Oh, could you talk less?" And I'm always like, "I mean, I'll try, but probably not."
Probably not.
But I thought I would read this out because I found this one very uplifting. And this is from a listener in Colorado. Starts out, Merry meet Car, Gwyn, and Ode. I found your podcast recently, and I'm only on episode 5, but I wanted to write you and say thank you. When I first found you, I was pretty sure my patron was Artemis, but it hadn't really gotten anywhere with the Greek tradition in America, which is predominantly Celtic. You're welcome. Ode especially inspired me to dig deeper, to look harder for text and inspiration. Your episode on monikers and metaphorical spaces encouraged me to find my name and to start meditating. Through meditation on a ritual I found on a festival dedicated to Artemis, I learned my name. Or pieces of it anyway. A lot of Googling put it all together for me, and it's actually a really flattering pet name that she gave me. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I just wanted you to know that your podcast has impacted me to a massive, incalculable degree. You'll never know what you have done for my confidence as a pagan and my craft as a whole. Thank you. Thank you for your time and effort. Thank you for the discussion and the space to think about all of this. I can't wait to listen to the rest.
You can't see my face, but I'm smiling like a fool.
Oh, I know. And it's so wonderful to hear that. It
Yeah.
means so much because sometimes we have our down days. We have our days where we don't have a lot of energy.
Where
and
we're just like, oh, good, recording.
yeah, it's like, or should we still be doing this? You know, all of that kind of questioning goes on.
We've been doing this for over 6 months now, which is a
Yeah.
pretty long stretch to be doing
Yeah,
a
it's
new
been over
thing
6
like
months.
this.
Yeah.
It's just really encouraging to know that people are listening, obviously, but also that it's
That it's
impacting
that it's meaningful for
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And so that means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And especially for me, as far as the Artemis connection for this listener goes, because I started out with Artemis as a patron goddess years ago. So that's really special to hear. They found their name through Artemis, and it was a pet name, which I love. I love that. That's so
Adorable.
awesome.
Adorable. I love it.
It is. It is adorable.
Okay.
So we're done with our
Listener-
happy joys.
Listener, thank you for your feedback.
Yes.
And we are so glad that you are finding your path.
Yes. That is a blessing to us.
Now, Car has to read something. Listeners, prepare your ears. It is time for Radio Voice Car.
Didn't they just get that?
Not like
No,
full,
not really.
like
Not full
intense
on.
radio voice.
No. This is a live spot for one of
Yeah.
our patrons.
Do you remember, listeners, when we talked about appropriation and how to properly and respectfully engage with the elements of another culture? It is in that spirit that with the sponsorship of our leopard Akaneko, we are proud to introduce you to the Grand Rapids Kimono Club. Kimono are a century-old Japanese article of clothing traditionally worn by men and women alike in various styles, and many of them are stunning works of art, both on and off the body. The Grand Rapids Kimono Club hosts kimono-wearing events where members can display their kimono and learn about different styles of kimono and the culture they came from, as well as how to distinguish between real kimono and clothing that is merely being advertised as kimono. There is no requirement to own a kimono to join the group, so check out the Grand Rapids Kimono Club on Facebook and learn more about this beautiful tradition.
I gotta admit, I've always loved radio voice. I always have. I remember back in the day when you and your sibling were just little ones, we'd sit by the radio and listen to your dad talking on the radio.
In the car. We would listen to Radio Dad.
Yes, we would. It was awesome, and so it just brings back nostalgia for me.
All right, we have an actual episode.
Yeah, we do.
Guys, we don't need to talk about my voice.
It's a good voice, though.
It's a sexy voice, honey.
Oh,
it just is.
Listeners, chime in if you think Car has a sexy radio voice.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he's turning red.
He is. It's too much compliments all at once. Can't sustain it. As you may have guessed from our fairly straightforward title this week, we're going to be starting a new series called First Steps, where we're going to talk about sort of introductory concepts in witchcraft and in paganism. Things that are applicable to a lot of traditions, but are maybe difficult to find, not information about, but difficult to just sort of sort the information about.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. We're going to start with grounding, centering, and shielding, because those are some really basic fundamentals.
And we've had people ask questions.
Exactly.
About
We've had people ask about it. So we're going to start with these sort of fundamental concepts and how to apply them.
And they're necessary.
You'll find that most rituals will at least mention grounding, centering, and shielding, but not explain it. They'll just assume that you know how to do it.
And it is necessary for not only ritual, but it's necessary for meditation, it's necessary for spellcraft, and just as your spiritual journey alone, it's very helpful to know these steps.
Applying all three of these concepts just in your day-to-day life can be very soothing and can help you like manage just stressful everyday situations.
Exactly.
So it's very multi-purpose.
It is multi-purpose, and it doesn't just have to be for your spiritual practice, it can be for your emotional well-being.
Since I've never done any of these.
Right.
Except once, we got you to
Car
do it
meditated with us once.
Once, yeah.
We're trying to get him into a regular...
I probably won't say a ton, although I have a bunch of notes.
Right.
I probably won't even talk about them, except maybe some of the exercises
In
I
passing,
found that I thought were cool, and that would probably make it easier for me to do some of this. I'll probably ask a lot of questions. So you all basically are running this episode, and I'll be the guy sitting over here going, I don't understand. Please explain.
Well, throw in a question if it...
Because sometimes there are these like technical terms that you don't even realize are technical terms. If I use any like words that are confusing, let me know. Because I've probably just integrated them so deeply into my vocabulary, I'm not consciously aware I'm using them.
Then we'll start with a question, okay? What are they? Because it's three different terms, obviously.
And they all mean different things.
Centering, and shielding.
Yep. And they're often referred to just as a group like
Right,
this.
exactly.
Yep.
So the question is, what is grounding?
And I do think it's important to note also that various traditions can have different definitions for these terms. We are giving you, from an eclectic witch and
a syncretic heathen,
our viewpoints. But if you're in a specific tradition, do make sure you go to someone within that tradition or
one of your elders.
One of your elders, or look through your materials so that you know what those definitions are for your tradition.
In case your tradition has a specific ritual that calls for grounding, you want to be doing the right kind of grounding.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
What is grounding? My framework for grounding, it's actually two separate stages of grounding that happen at different points, and they're two different classes of action. The first stage is the grounding I do when I'm starting a thing, or that I might do in the middle of my day if I get stressed out. And that's a sort of spiritual class of action where I essentially perform the same function spiritually that like electrical grounding performs, where because I am either already receiving or expect to receive a large volume of energy, I am a small meat creature and I don't want it to all just be stuck in me. I would rather that I have connections to something bigger than me, that energy can move into and through, so that I'm not the end point. So the same way that you have like a grounding rod to prevent electrical buildup. I create, I guess, a spiritual grounding rod, or a spiritual energy connection, and most people do it to the earth, so that like high volume of energy doesn't stop with me, but can carry on to the thing I've grounded to.
Okay.
And then the second stage and different class of grounding action is the thing I do after I'm done working with a high volume of energy, and I have closed or gated or displaced that major connection because I don't specifically need it anymore. I will do a secondary grounding to get like reconnected with my body, because especially if I've been doing anything where spiritually I like disconnected from my body in some way to be more spiritually active, I will go eat something, drink something, engage in sensory experiences. So I'll do physical things to remind myself what physical life is like and reconnect with my physical body and make sure like everything's all lined up.
Okay. You have a different...
For me, I think it's similar terms and similar ideas, but for me, like the beginning, what you described in the initial grounding or
Stage one grounding,
that for me would be centering. That is the beginning of energy work. And that, again, that is one of those things that can be different based on your tradition. It begins for me with meditation and visualization. What I do there is I'm visualizing my own energy body first, and then expanding that to out into the universe, where I'm building that energy basically from the top or the crown of my head down through my body and through the soles of my feet, where that energy is grounded in a sense, like a lightning rod.
Yeah.
Into the earth, and I go down. I imagine myself going down deep into the core of the earth.
So for you, that's centering and not grounding?
That's centering for me.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep, that's centering. And
so what's grounding?
Building that energy, and that's also where energy play comes in.
Right, right. But
I'm
what's grounding?
I'm going to get there. Just give me a second. I want to say centering. This is also part. It's all part of energy work for me.
Right.
The grounding is very similar to what you describe in the focus of pulling that energy back into my body, but also keeping that rooted into the ground and then doing something physical to release that energy. So it would be like, I know in some of the resources I've read, you can plunge your hands into a dish of earth, or you can imagine that energy going into a bucket of water, or dispersing the energy.
So just displacing.
Yeah, displacing that energy into the earth through the connection you already have to the earth, that kind of thing. Okay. That's what grounding would be.
So I read that you could also do it by touching like oats, stone, corner.
It's early. It's early this episode. Yeah, it is.
I'm impressed.
Usually we start with Gwyn.
I know.
Okay. All right. Well,
but is
I
that
like
not
that.
true?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yes.
And I've specifically chosen a stone this week I use for grounding. So this is
and stones
primo.
are excellent. I use stones for grounding as well. Just something tactile to hold on to.
Yep. The stone we'll be using that we'll be discussing this week is hematite, which the name hematite means red mineral, essentially. Yeah, I know.
No, I believe you. I've just never seen red.
So I have a piece of hematite here with me, and it can actually range in color from black all the way through to a dark brown or a red color. But when it's tumbled like this, it almost always acquires a silvery sort of luster.
Interesting.
And is that what you think most people traditionally
think of? That's what most people think of as hematite. The reason it's called hematite is because if you pull it on a streak plate, which a streak plate is like a unvarnished porcelain plate that's used to test the sort of fundamental makeup of different stones, because a very small amount of a mineral inclusion can change the color of a stone significantly, which makes identification difficult. But when you pull it on a streak plate, it breaks up into very small particles and the color is more consistent on a streak plate. Mineralogists will use a streak plate to determine the actual mineral makeup of a stone. Yeah. Hematite produces a distinctive red streak.
Interesting.
Because it's actually an iron oxide.
Okay.
And you'll sometimes find hematite that is banded, actually. You'll sometimes find hematite that, even after it's been tumbled like this, will have red bands in it. If it was a really strongly banded stone. Or sometimes those will actually be jasper. Sometimes you'll find hematite and red jasper in the same stone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It has a metallic to a dull luster. It's usually, like I said, the tumbled form is usually a very, very shiny silver color. Usually like a dark silver.
Right.
It's an abundant mineral. It's not quite as abundant as quartz, but it's not hard to find. It is not actually magnetic, despite the profusion of quote-unquote magnetic hematite for sale. Most quote-unquote magnetic hematite isn't actually hematite. It's a synthetic magnet that has been, tumbled and polished to look like hematite.
So how do you find real hematite?
It'll have the distinctive red streak on the plate. All hematite has that. And there are a few minerals that resemble hematite that if it doesn't have the red streak, it's not real hematite.
Gotcha.
Sometimes hematite will have magnesite incorporated in the mineral, and that will make it slightly magnetic, not like significantly like could be picked up off the table by a magnetic. Like at best, it'll sort of like wobble.
Gotcha.
But pure hematite is not magnetic.
But it's an iron oxide, so
it's an iron oxide.
Could possibly pick it up, depending on the content.
It depends on the mineral contents.
And the strength of your magnet. Yeah.
There are a few instances where natural hematite has been magnetized by putting it on a very, 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 very strong magnet and rapidly heating and cooling it, and that can magnetize natural hematite, but that's like a man-made process that creates the magnetism
in the earth.
Exactly. The rainbow or aura hematite is also usually not natural. Well, it might be natural hematite underneath the rainbow. Some hematite does have an iridescence, but it's a very, very mild iridescent quality.
Not that aqua aura kind of thing.
Yeah, it's nothing like the aqua aura or rainbow extremely strong iridescence that you'll find on most of that, and especially the magnetic rainbow hematite is basically just a magnet that has a thin coating of an iridescent material on top of it. And you will know because the iridescent coating actually wears off over time.
And my question is, does that make it even a useful stone or just a pretty stone?
The rainbow?
Yeah.
If it's hematite underneath, it's still hematite. Someone just prettied it for some reason. It's harder to know if you have real hematite because you can't do a streak test with the rainbow aura on it because you'll just be pulling off the rainbow aura.
So chances are if you're buying a rainbow aura, just get it because it looks pretty.
Because it looks
you're
pretty,
not sure.
And especially if it's a magnetic rainbow, it's just a magnet. It's just a magnet that has been tumbled to look like hematite.
And I think that's maybe a good time to point out that you do need to make sure your stones are genuine.
Yeah, there are a lot of... and I'm sure I'll cover more of them over time, but there are a lot of stones that are being misrepresented, essentially. Not even necessarily intentionally. Like, the store you get it from may not even know that, like,
it's being sold to
this
them.
howlite is magnesite or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, in this case, it's being sold as hematite.
It's hematite, yeah, and it may just be that the proprietor of the store doesn't know that hematite isn't magnetic because it's been widely sold as magnetic hematite for a long, long time.
Right.
Gotcha.
There are two other, like, distinguishing characteristics of hematite, and they actually both make it very good for grounding, just in a physical sense. First, hematite has an extremely high specific gravity, which means that it's very, very dense as compared to stones of the same size. So quartz has a specific gravity of 2.5 to 2.7, and hematite has a specific gravity of 5 to 5.7.
Okay.
On average. It can vary.
Twice as heavy.
It's a much heavier stone than an equivalently sized piece of quartz.
Gotcha.
It's also got a high specific heat. If you have a quartz and a hematite both under like an air vent and they both get very cold, right? If you pick them up at the same time, the quartz will warm with your body heat much faster than the hematite will. So the hematite will remain cold longer because it takes more energy to heat hematite.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
I find that very useful. Like, it's a good physical soother. So if you get stressed out by something, hematite would be a good pull for, like, a worry stone. Just because it's heavy, so, like, there's no question that you are holding a thing.
Right.
And because it maintains that cold, if you're getting stressed out, especially a lot of people when they get stressed out, blood starts circulating faster, and, like, your skin will heat up, your face will get red. Hematite, because it maintains that cold temperature faster, you can, like, put it to your pulse points or to your temples, and it'll help cool you down a little.
Interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I find it useful for that, just in those very physically soothing ways.
Right.
Metaphysically, hematite is just a good grounding stone. Just in general. It's got a controlled feeling. It's good for protection. So hematite has what I call a down tone, as opposed to the up tones I've mentioned several times now. I don't want to specifically say like a lower frequency of vibration because I don't really do the whole vibrations thing, but it has what I call a down tone. So it's just like
just kind of sits there?
No, it's deeper. It connects it connects on a deeper level, and it's got a very solid foundation, a very solid base. I do sometimes get off my lawn vibe from hematite, but not like a genuinely, so like obsidian, I'll get a genuinely old man, like, get off my lawn, you ruffians, feeling from. Hematite will give me the get off you lawn you get from a kid who's like 20 but was born feeling 80 years old.
Gotcha.
You might need to hunt a little bit to find the right hematite. It's one of those that can be a little finicky about finding the right person. But even a hematite that you receive as a gift or that you just like pick up because it's the right shape for a worry stone or whatever will probably work with you, if in a slightly begrudging way.
Do you recommend wearing it or just having it present?
It depends. I know there are hematite rings that you can get. I don't recommend them because they're extremely brittle and they break. Hematite, though it has a very high density, is a brittle stone. When you make it into a ring, it will snap into a billion pieces pretty fast.
Yep. All you have to do is drop it once on anything.
On anything, yeah. Or smack your hand too hard against a table. Hematite rings shatter with distressing regularity. So I don't recommend getting a hematite ring. You could get a hematite pendant. I think that would be very nice, although you would lose some of that, like, the cold quality because it would be constantly warmed by your body heat. Sure. I have just a very large hematite that I keep with me, but I keep it in a pouch where it's a little separated from my body heat, so it stays cold, and then I can pull it out of the pouch when I need it.
Excellent.
Yep. And that's it for Ode's Stone Corner! By the way, I got a 10 out of 10 from Lorelei, who's listening in the Hunters channel, for the segue.
Nice.
Nice.
It was a good segue.
Nice. It was.
Well done.
Although I felt like the ending Stone Corner lacked a little enthusiasm.
Less pizzazz on that one.
I'm sorry. You all were yelling at me for being loud. It's hard to be up and not loud when you're doing doing the
radio,
the wrestler announcement. You have to be like, rah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yep. So where were we? We were talking about centering.
Right. We
talked about grounding.
We had talked about grounding. We had defined what grounding is.
And you defined your version of centering.
My version of centering.
Which is one of my versions of grounding. For me, centering is a slightly different process. You can do it by itself, but it's one that I usually use in conjunction with the rest. And it's the process of becoming aware of the energy body. So it's just that stage. It's the part where I sit down before I've done any of the grounding, like rooting and branching and that stuff. It's just the part where I become aware of sort of my central core of myself and of the energy mantle around me in its natural state. And I bring those things into alignment with my body so that I can manipulate it moving forward.
And I think it's important to notate that there's energy around us all the time. I mean, there's our own personal energy field. There's the energy field of other people's around us, as well as just nature itself.
Right.
And so really that's what centering and grounding is about, is recognizing that energy in yourself and around you.
And engaging
with it, manipulating that energy to do whatever your ritual or craft work is going to be.
Right.
So how do I find where my center is then?
Okay. It's partly a visualization process, right? But it's not completely. Before I officially became a pagan, would sometimes become aware of a feeling that my body stretched beyond my body. And I started calling that the mantle. It's what most people call the energy body or the aura or, that. It's sort of like a second skin. Mine, at least, especially when I was younger, would sort of detach and drift away and explore other parts of the world, around me.
So like the cape in Doctor Strange.
Yes, exactly like that. I would become aware, especially in so I had a long walk for a while between the bus stop and my house.
Right.
And I would become aware sometimes during that walk when it was very quiet, especially during the night when there weren't a lot of cars going by. I would become aware of that mantle and of my awareness of myself extending beyond my physical body. So having that experience, what I guess is a mildly disassociated experience of the energy mantle just sort of in its natural state, made it very easy for me when I needed to learn how to do centering to recognize when I had reached that point of actively engaging with the mantle and with the energy body. But the visualization part is, for me, the core of my identity the core selfness, I just visualize as essentially a golden sphere that I keep sort of in my center, my physical center, and then the energy mantle, the energy body, the aura, whatever, just sort of floats around it.
Okay. I'm going to completely geek out for a minute.
Okay.
Is it more like Doctor Strange's cape, or is it more like Venom?
I'd
for
go
me,
with, like, Venom.
For me, it's much more like Venom. Yeah, it's because
Okay.
it's a shifting second skin
Right.
that very much, it can fit very closely over my physical shape, or can transform and sort of,
Like
move out
into a
and
Doctor
expand
Strange place.
into different forms and
Forms,
configurations.
right, yeah.
Now that I'm a little more practiced, I do that more deliberately to do like trance work and shapeshifty vivisualizations
Okay,
and stuff
so
like
for
that.
those of you all who are listening who are not geeks, I'm sorry.
We all are.
We all are, so...
We all are.
All are. And I think
helps
that's
me.
I think it's a great analogy
It is,
for
yeah.
people who do understand part of geekdom, you know,
Right.
the various characters. I know for me, it started with meditation and visualization. It actually started with visualizing the energy body around the trees around where we lived. I would go out into the yard and I'd meditate for up to an hour. And then during that meditation, I would open my eyes and just observe the trees. What I learned was to see the energy outlining those things.
Right.
And then that would translate into seeing the energy around my own body.
That's so interesting that you experienced it first as an external thing.
I was able to grow into understanding that I was a part of all of this energy that surrounds us, the trees and the plants and the earth, and I could feel the thrumming of the energy in the earth, the energy body that surrounded myself, and it was not unlike Venom or Doctor Strange. I could expand it to a wider range, or
Right.
I could bring it in very close, and I could materialize it into just between my hands and visualize it as a ball of energy that I could toss between my hands
Right.
and feel. And it got over time, it got to the point where I can do that just looking at you guys. I can visualize
Right.
and
You don't have to,
experience
like,
and feeling
meditate and
that.
prep
I don't have
for
to
that.
prep for it anymore. I can just feel that energy now in my body and in this room between my hands, that kind of thing, and then dispersing it
Right.
back into the ground where it goes. And that's over time. You can learn to do that either in a deep meditative state or just in everyday walking somewhere.
But for you, centering involves that process that I
Yes.
call grounding.
Yes. For me, that is part of centering. Yes.
Okay, see, for me, centering is just becoming aware of and pulling close the energy mantle.
I think it's similar words for the same thing.
Well,
you know?
no, we're using the same words to describe different concepts
Well,
or
that's
different
true.
stages of the same
Right.
process.
Yeah.
You've
stages.
taken grounding and split it in two.
Right.
Where most people use grounding, from what I've read.
Right.
And again, only from what I've read, because I've not actually done it. But people do the grounding at the end.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I don't understand why centering happens at the beginning, because I think it should happen in the middle, because that's the whole point of having the word centering, but whatever.
Well, I think the idea is that you center yourself.
You center
Right,
yourself with all the, with all the energy that is around it. You center yourself.
Then they should have called it beginning. I'm just saying. Like, it's, anyway.
But then it moves out into energy work, spellcraft,
Yeah.
ritual, everyday life, because you can also use it for shielding. At least I can.
Right.
Okay, well,
yeah, we'll
shielding's
talk about
another thing,
We'll
right?
talk about shield. That's a
Yep.
whole separate
That's a
thing.
whole
It's again
separate
a thing
thing.
that you sort of do in conjunction with
Exactly. It
centering
all
and
kind of-
grounding. But
one plays into the other,
but
plays into the other.
You can do all of them separately.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so shielding for me is the process of, and I'm going to be upfront with y'all, I know that other people source their energy for shielding differently. I am not recommending doing it my way. I got my way from
An organic personal experience.
from an organic experience and from some personal gnosis, and so I'm not saying that this is the way anybody else should do it. It may not be good for you. But the way I do shielding is that once I'm centered and grounded, the final stage of my whole prep process for meditating, for ritual, for all those things, is to form the mantle, not the core. The core stays in me, but the mantle forms essentially an eggshell around me and becomes impermeable or semi-permeable, depending on if I'm willing to interact with other beings at that point.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of my grounding process is that I connect to, I go down and connect with the earth, I go up and connect with the heavens. The visual for that is of a tree for
Right.
me. I call it branching and rooting.
Yep. Which I've seen actually in ADF stuff, so it's kind of funny. I know you talk about it that way.
And I came to it totally organically without any...
Which I think just proves it's part of...
Yeah, it's natural.
It's part of natural human consciousness, maybe part of the Akashic records.
Yeah, who knows?
Cultural memory, who knows?
Yeah, so I came to this organically without studying any other traditions. But so I do the branching and rooting, I find my center, I expand the eggshell, and then because my shield is just me, it is just a shield of myself.
Right.
It is made up of all of my emotions and thoughts and drama through the day. I go through a process where I filter that shield before it's fully solidified. I filter that shield up through the branches of the tree to clear out half, at an exact percentage of the negativity in my innate being. Mm-hmm. And then when I've gotten half of it gone, we go down, everything swirls up, and it solidifies into my shield because that balance is important to me.
Right.
This probably says some shit about me.
You have to get half of your negativity gone before you're balanced?
And it probably says something about me that my shield is just me. And I'm not sourcing that energy from elsewhere because I know people do.
Right.
A lot of people source their energy for shields from the earth or from deities who work with them. Mm-hmm. I don't do that. I got permission to do it my way from the entities that matter to me, so that's all that's important.
Right.
But I think it brings up an important point that shielding can, and I think should be, a personal experience, choice. It can be created very organically because not all techniques that are out there work for every individual.
A lot of them are interchangeable, but they're not necessarily.
Exactly.
Just because it works for Sarah doesn't mean it will work for you.
Exactly. Right. For me, what I've always done starts with the centering and becoming aware of my own energy body. And then, quite honestly, it's not unlike what you do. I expand it into, depending on what I'm experiencing or going through that day, I'll expand it out a little bit away from my body, but I'll also make it reflective so that negative things are either bouncing off or being transformed into some kind of useful energy and being absorbed. The other thing that I have done is I will imagine, because I told you I'll imagine that universal energy, the energy that is surrounding us, kind of funneling into my being during my centering process. If I'm in a situation where I feel particularly stressed or just really need a shield, a bubble, I'll draw that energy down and create an actual mirrored bubble so that things are just bouncing back to wherever it came. But that's if I'm feeling extremely stressed.
That's interesting. Your shields are much more like multifunction than mine. Mine is basically just a fortress wall.
Yeah.
It's just like nothing comes through here unless I open the door.
And to be fair, I used to do my shields that way. I got the idea of transforming negative energy into something positive or useful, either for myself or out into the universe, from reading a book by Dorothy Morrison. And she's a very talented Wiccan writer. That's where I got the idea, because she used to do that idea of just bouncing negative energy away until she realized, hey, this could be transformed into something useful that I could use. That's what I do with my shielding.
It's time for reviews.
That came
the
up
best
suddenly.
one. Yes, I think it's because you were talking about books.
Probably. He's really into the segues today. It's like...
Yeah, and that was really good sing-song.
It was very nice.
Excellent.
Well, thanks.
Have you been practicing?
Good songing.
No. I've been working and worried about moving and stressing out about everything.
Well, it has not affected your vocal skills.
Well, thanks. Maybe if I'm more stressed, it comes out better. I don't know.
We're going to be reviewing The Ultimate Guide to Chakras by Dr. Athena Parakis today. And before we do anything, I want to be clear, because we do not do appeals to authority on this show, that Dr. Athena Parakis' doctorate is in education policy analysis, and her master's is in comparative literature and Spanish. She has a PhD.
Yep.
It's not relevant to this topic.
And we were given this book to review for our honest and free,
unbiased
review.
opinion.
Yep. And I can honestly say I didn't read it.
He didn't read it. He forgot.
Not that I...
He's been a little busy.
Well, I've been busy, but quite honestly, I just don't care about chakras. And that may be...
That's okay.
Right.
And I think that's
right.
important for listeners to know. You don't have to be into chakras.
I don't care about chakras.
I care a little bit about chakras. I do probably wrongly. I do a kind of a chakra cleanse every now and again. I was told by a Reiki master that I have very clear chakras, so I must be doing something right. But I have not studied the chakras.
Yeah.
I just know basically where they are.
I don't even know how many
yeah,
there are.
General color.
7 or 8.
You know. So this was a very enlightening book, and I thought
it was interesting.
a
Yeah.
good book.
It was a fine book. It was a very pretty book. It's extremely attractive.
It is very pretty.
And extremely attractive. Aesthetically, high quality book.
And it's personally a book
I enjoyed looking at it.
I plan to get it, just like with the tree book.
Yeah.
I plan on getting
Forest bathing retreat.
Forest bathing retreat.
The tree book.
That's how I remember it in my brain. The tree book, because I loved it so much. All the pictures were gorgeous.
Right.
But the pictures are gorgeous in this too, and there's a lot of really interesting, useful information for me as someone who uses chakras kind of
Intermittently,
eclectically. Because let's get this straight right now. This is not a book that is academically
rigorous.
Well,
maybe? It's more for the casual reader, like I am.
And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up with this is we've reviewed several books now, and there always seems to be a little bit of a difference of opinion between Gwyn and Ode, and I finally figured it out today what it is that Gwyn reads casually. She wants to get some cool information about something, and then if she wants more, she'll do more study.
I'm eclectic to my core. That's just how it is.
Ode wants a book that tells you everything that could possibly be known about that particular subject.
In my defense,
in as little space as possible.
And all the sourcing.
But have it all there with an intense bibliography.
In my defense, this is called The Ultimate Guide to Chakras.
It's not just this book, though. But
No. It has its positives and its
Negatives, yeah.
I think one of the positives is that it does give some interesting information. For instance, I did not know that Western medicine is one of the few modalities that has zero mention of energy.
I didn't get sources on that.
Things like that. Yeah, so Ode is skeptical of that, but I thought that was an interesting point. I also liked the references to correspondences with oils and stones and things like that. I thought that was good.
So the book goes through every chakra. Mm-hmm. And it gives you some exercises, and it gives you a bunch of correspondences. And normally,
the exercises were good.
Yeah, the exercises were interesting. And normally those correspondences would just be a table, and there is a table of correspondences at the end of each chapter. But then there is like an extended explanation of each correspondence. And I liked that a lot. That was really, really nice to have that information, to not just have a table, but to be like, here's why this is a correspondence for this concept or this chakra.
I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
Because
not surprising, but go ahead.
I did like that part, because for the casual reader, it does really just give you the information you want.
Right. So I liked the more detailed correspondence lists. I did find it a little frustrating, just on a personal level, that only goddesses were ever mentioned as correspondences.
And that's the other thing that I was going to mention.
Athena Paracus, I guess, is from, I don't know if she's in a Dianic tradition.
I don't know. It is very goddess-centric. The entire book is goddess-centric. And I did not realize it until I read the final about the author. I actually follow her organization.
She's the CEO of Sage Goddess.
Of Sage Goddess, which is also an organization and a store of...
It's a metaphysical
metaphysical store. It's wonderful, but it is definitely goddess-centric. So in that way, it's a little unbalanced.
Yeah.
You don't have people who worship both gods and goddesses represented here. It is very goddess-centric.
Yeah, I found that a little off-putting. The other thing is that it's very eclectic. Mm-hmm. We've talked before about appropriation.
Yep.
Chakras have been so deeply appropriated that it's almost ridiculous to call it appropriation at this point.
Right, yeah.
The chakras originate in Vedic traditions, and there is a brief mention of Vedic tradition at the beginning of this book, but it really is a very eclectically sourced book. All the exercises refer to, like, Mother Earth in a very vague way.
It's very Wiccan.
It's just a kind of... God, I don't know how to put this. Sexless isn't the right word, but that's sort of what I mean. Like a very, maybe sterile? I don't know. Just a very...
Meh.
Yeah, just a very sort of unsourced spiritual feeling.
Kind of like the Sarah Wiseman book?
Kind of.
That,
Kind of. It doesn't come from any specific tradition, and there are no specific feelings of a specific tradition, or it's not a religious book, it's not a magic book, it's like a very vaguely spiritual book.
And for me, as an eclectic...
Right.
Who has a vague interest in chakras,
Right.
It's perfect.
Right. So
I
this
liked it.
is very much
because
like
it's perfect for someone like me.
Yeah, this is very much going to depend on what you're looking for. When I see a title, The Ultimate Guide to Chakras, what I'm looking for is
the ultimate
the
guide.
is the ultimate guide to chakras,
And
and
I
I
will
want
agree
it
with
to
you
be
on
like
that.
I want it to be like rooted in Vedic traditions, and I want it to like discuss. Yeah, so it just wasn't the book I wanted.
I think this could have been better titled The Goddess Guide. The
Goddess Guide to Chakras would have been perfect, yeah.
Might have been a little bit more apropos for what the book is actually
'Cause
about.
again,
Because I will
although-
agree with you on that. It is not thorough enough.
and it just doesn't feel rooted. It just feels rootless. I guess is the word I wanted.
For something that calls itself The Ultimate Guide to Chakras, it is missing a very important component.
Okay, so out of 1 to 5 stars.
We don't do those. We just say
I know.
recommended or not recommended.
But I have to do that because I have to post it all
Oh,
over
you
the
do?
internet.
Yeah,
so
Amazon and
I have to tell it that
okay,
for
well,
everything. So
I didn't know that. That's not when I write the reviews up. I don't put.
No, you don't have to.
You don't
I
have
just
to.
have to do it
Just
when
figure out,
when
okay.
I copy and paste it.
Oh,
so
behind the scenes.
Pull back the curtain. Out of
yeah,
5
right.
stars?
Yeah, out of 5 stars.
As a book, I would give it probably 3.5 to 4 stars. As this book, I would give it like 2 stars.
So I'm going to end up at 3 then, or
I'd give it a
2.75.
I'd give it a 4 because I enjoyed the book as an eclectic witch
Right.
who has a passing interest in
Right.
chakras. But if you are a serious student of the chakras,
I don't think this will be useful for you.
I would pass up on this book. Yeah.
So then, so it's not
Or
the
if
ultimate
you,
guide.
it's the Goddess Guide to Chakras.
yeah.
Because it really is very goddess specific. It is eclectic.
And we mean goddess here in that, like, really overarching sense
Yeah,
of goddess.
overarching sense of goddess.
Because, like, the individual correspondences in the chakras include specific goddesses, but it talks about the goddess in that very overarching, sort of vague,
exactly.
ambiguous way.
So that's why I would say that is how I would consider it. So if you're a serious student of the chakras,
You can buy this book and then just cross
it's
out
pretty.
the ultimate and write goddess on the cover.
Yeah, it's pretty. And if you're someone who is not goddess centric,
Pass on this
you
one.
might want to pass on it.
Okay, so 3.5, and it's a lukewarm.
Yeah. A
3
lukewarm
pagans and a
buy it,
cat
yeah.
approval.
Yeah.
You could read it.
I think you'd enjoy it if you're like me.
And like I said, there were parts of it that I did enjoy. I liked seeing that more detailed correspondence table. Beautiful book, excellent. Like, there's some beautiful watercolors
there's some
in it.
beautiful
Right.
pictures. So aesthetically very pleasing.
Yeah,
book.
just the text itself, I was just kind of at best about.
Okay, that's it for the reviews.
That's him trying to get us to stop.
Yeah,
It worked.
it worked. It did.
And on to the next thing. We've talked about shielding briefly.
Right. We've talked about what all these things are.
Right.
Yeah.
And sort of
some techniques.
a little bit about how they look like.
I do have a question because I've also seen protection thrown in
Okay.
as something different than
Yeah.
grounding, centering, and shielding.
Yep.
So where does that come in, and can that be individual or is that more group? Because I thought of shielding as kind of like when Gwyn does casting a circle.
Ah, okay.
But
yeah.
that's different.
That's a different kind of protection.
Okay.
That's
All
it,
right.
yeah. So there's shielding, which is the sort of personal shields we've talked about.
Okay.
There's casting a circle, which is to sort of protect a group. Mm-hmm. And then there's warding.
Or self. You can do
Right,
it
you can do it for yourself too, but it's to protect the magical space,
Right.
to
Right.
create the sacred space. And then there's warding, which is like a more intensive and sort of more permanent
more what
shielding.
we
And
do
it's
around the
usually
house.
it's usually done on a location instead of on a person.
It's like putting
Although you
up-
can put up personal wards.
Yes, you can put up personal wards, but it's for me a ward around the house is more like a shield that goes that extends all the way around the home.
Okay, we got to find something better than
So
shield so I don't get confused with other things.
Okay,
So,
ward. It's a ward.
Yeah,
a
okay.
wall, if you will, an energy wall.
Okay.
That's how I envision it. There's an energy wall.
So a shield is something that I can put up and take down
Yeah.
constantly without much preparation. A ward is a more permanent structure
Yep. And
for which I might even establish like a gatekeeper. I might create a sigil or imbue a statue or something with the authority and instruction to maintain this ward.
And you strengthen it.
Right, you feed it.
You feed it over time. Like we go through and we sage, we cleanse out any negative energy that may have been built up that we may have brought in on our persons, that kind of thing.
Anybody who snuck in, any uninvited guests.
Yeah, any uninvited guests that have snuck in. And then we strengthen that ward around
Gotcha.
the house.
I see Ward as like a young boy. Or the
Robin.
Yeah, exactly, Robin. Yeah, exactly.
No.
To geek out completely again.
Yes.
But
We're really into the
geek stuff
the
today.
geek board
Apparently,
today.
yeah,
We need to watch
apparently.
some superhero
Apparently.
movies when we get done.
Apparently.
Okay.
no, we'll be editing.
Yeah,
I
well,
fly
yeah.
out
Okay,
of
so
town.
I'll be watching Doctor Strange.
And we'll be editing.
I fly out of town to go
On
to
Monday.
Dallas
laundry.
Yeah.
Monday, so I have to finish up everything to get prepared for that. And then fly back and we move.
Yeah.
The next morning.
Yeah, the
But
next
moving
week is
on.
going to be wild for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
But moving back to
Yeah.
warding, I
Right.
do think it's important to ward not only your home, but your car.
Yeah, we have a word up on the
We
car
have a ward
that I
on
set
our
up
car,
last year.
You know, and things that you care about protecting because, you know, that's...
So the sigil
Important.
you did for me when I was nervous driving on ice
Yeah.
was actually a ward.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, I envisioned it as a shield around the car that would
Okay.
protect it
And
from
boy,
damage.
has it worked. Let me tell you, that's a wonderful sigil you made.
Yeah, yeah.
Very strong, very
Technically a
powerful.
bind rune.
Yeah, it was great.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Bind rune.
It's just they function in a very similar way.
Right.
A bind rune just uses very specific
And
forms,
there's-
and a sigil is a different, like it's constructed in a different way.
And there's
Gotcha.
different reasons for warding or protective shields. If you are experiencing negative energy, you can put up a ward to protect you from that or to absorb it or change it into something more useful. If you're a psychic medium, such as myself, I have gatekeepers and wards up around the house to prevent being inundated with spiritual energy all
And
the time.
I have separate wards from the house wards in my room because I invite different spirits into the house. So I have what I call an open or a semi-permeable gate around the windows and then a closed gate around the interior door that leads to the rest of the house so that I can invite spirits into my space and not have them leak into the rest of the house.
Right. And then my main spirit guide, he acts as a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And there are some he allows in and some he doesn't. So, but those are
Interesting.
just some of the
Right, yeah.
reasons.
And all of that
Completely out of my sphere.
out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, out of my wheelhouse, but something I'm very interested in. So,
Yeah.
you know, as I'm in
It's
the
also
learning
important.
process.
It's also important, as I learned from going to cursing and
Uncursing.
well,
Or
the cursing
cursing.
part.
Yeah.
If you got somebody who's a witch who tosses
yes.
a curse at you,
Yes,
you know,
but that's very, very rare.
That's
it's
true.
Many more people think they're cursed
Oh, yeah.
than are actually cursed.
I agree with that. And my point
But
is...
if you have good shields, you shouldn't have to worry about it.
Exactly. And my point is there are a variety of reasons why somebody would want to have a ward around their home and around their persons and their family.
Yep.
Cool. I'm like stoked to learn more about it because I obviously don't do any of this.
Right.
Right.
And it's good that you're learning about these sort of fundamental steps before you start doing them.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
yeah, right. I don't want to like invite something in
Exactly.
and then not have any
Okay,
of the protections
so-
up or not have any.
So I'll go through a, for
Which
instance.
I think it's good though, like for listeners, like I have you guys here.
Right, exactly.
So
you can consult with us
I
at
can
any
consult
time.
with you all at any time. Having you all like disseminate this information in a greater context than just to me makes a ton of sense. I'm glad we're doing this like first steps thing. Or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it
First
is.
steps is what we're calling this,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think this will be dope, and it'll help me learn, but it'll also help listeners.
Yep. Some of the feedback we've gotten is that a lot of our listeners are very new to their practice.
Yes,
Correct, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
either
let me-
very new or very, very,
Very, very new.
Very-
Or very, very, very
yeah.
practiced.
practiced.
Yeah.
Practiced, yeah.
I didn't want to say old.
No, but yeah, I have noticed there's not really a middle ground. There's
Yeah,
either people
yeah.
who've been practicing for a
Or
week or people who've
experienced.
been practicing for 12 years.
Right, yeah. yeah.
Exactly. So let me go through for instance, when Odin and I do a basic warding of
Right.
our house for protection of the house.
Yep.
What we do is we usually start in the living room where we have a sliding glass door.
And we start with meditation usually.
we start with meditation to get ourselves grounded, centered, rooted, and branched and shielded and whatever you want to call it. And then we use my besom, my broom. And we have banishing oil, and we use either sage or lavender or
One of the cleansing smokes.
cleansing
Yeah.
smokes. And we start with sweeping out negative energy. So I think
I usually hold the smoke, and Gwyn will do the sweeping.
I'll do the sweeping, and we'll just say a basic incantation, and we'll do a circuit of the house, and we'll stop at the front door, and we'll open the door, and we'll sweep out the negative energy. And
any apertures in and out of the house.
Windows, doors, and then after we've swept it and closed it, Ode will anoint the lintels, and then we'll move on. And so we do that throughout the house, just the walking the perimeter.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Of the house to create, or actually, we created it years ago.
Years ago. We just maintain it now.
To maintain this protective barrier. And sometimes we do it once a month if we feel like there's been a lot of anxiety or a lot of negative energy.
Maybe we ought to do it tonight since we've got this whole
we
week
actually,
of craziness.
it's been a bit since we've done it, actually, and we are going to need to. We're going to do it probably before we move, and then we'll actually tear down the wards.
Well, yeah, so we're going to pull it down.
Out.
We're actually going
But I have separate, what I'm calling the white shield that I'm putting up for the housewives.
Yeah.
And we're also going to go through with Florida water, and I'm going to clean all of the floors that I have that are linoleum, but also I'm going to just do a baseboard just to clear the space.
So it's a good clean space for whoever
moves in.
Right.
Yeah. And then we'll do the same thing when we move into our house.
To the new house.
Right, yep. Which will be somewhat newish.
Yeah.
Lots of new stuff.
It'll be new to us.
Yeah.
And what you can do when you ward your house, you can set up a regular schedule of doing it once a month, or you could do kind of like we do, where we go, there's some
It feels sticky in here.
It feels sticky in here. We need to do some patching.
Right.
We'll do that. So it really is up to you.
Yep.
Okay. Very cool. You know what we haven't done yet?
I have a suspicion.
What do you think it might be? Could it be
Gwyn's
Garden Gems?
Yes,
Okay,
I think it's
cool.
exactly that.
Now, I feel cheated.
Why?
I feel like you did Ode Stone Corner and the review better than Gwyn's Garden Gems today.
I think it was fine.
Hold on.
Get yourself...
Gotta get limbered up.
Gotta get limbered up.
Gwyn's Garden Gems.
Thank you.
There we go.
Much better. All right.
Oh, by the way, before you start, Fen Ashburn has joined us as well.
Fen.
So,
and
we
hey,
now have Fen, Lorelei, and Luna.
This is exciting. We've never had
this many hunters in the channel at one time.
All right, hunters, listen. If you have a question, throw it out there, please.
Lorelei said, when I was in my dorms, I would ward, break wards, ward again at the start and the end of each break.
Oh,
excellent. Yeah, that's really good.
That's brilliant. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
For Gwyn's Garden Gems.
Right.
What I wanted to do today was share 3 herbs that are really good for shielding and protection.
3?
Just briefly, okay? And the reason I chose these 3 is because they're excellent for removing negative energy. The first is basil, which is known as a symbol of fertility in Italy and a symbol of love. However, the plant is a protector of family and relieves negative energy from the home and stimulates the mind toward contentment and happiness. Basil is also associated with divination, clairvoyance, and honesty. So it's an excellent herb to have either as an incense, as an oil,
as a live plant on your balcony.
Plant on your balcony, which I do. So it's wonderful for both protection and these other reasons. Fennel is actually known for longevity, courage, and strength, but it wards off negative energy and provides protection and fortifies personal wards. You might want to get some fennel essential oil. Obviously, use it with a carrier oil, and you can anoint yourself, and it will help protect your personal wards and boundaries, especially if you're having relationship issues. It'll be very good for assisting in your boundaries.
Could I just wear a stalk of fennel on my lapel?
I was wondering, you could probably put fennel seed or something in an amulet.
You could create an amulet with this. Obviously, you could have fennel in your garden, or just have it as an herb to eat. Put it in your cooking. It's an excellent herb for protection and strengthening your personal wards. And then vetiver it's actually a grass. It's good for cleansing and purifying human energy fields. And it also protects against negativity and is excellent for grounding work. Have some vetiver oil, perhaps, along with your hematite when you need to ground after you've done your energy work, after you've done your casting of your spells, just to make sure that you're out of the spiritual realm and back into the mundane. It's also excellent as a bug repellent. So it might be great to use vetiver when you are outside doing your rituals and your spell casting.
Or you're at Grand Rapids Pagan Pride.
Oh my Lord.
4,000 mosquitoes.
Bazillion mosquitoes running around.
I wish I had some vetiver oil yesterday. The stuff I had did an admirable job.
They just had to be constantly reapplied.
Oh my gosh.
There's so freaking many of them.
And believe it or not, vetiver, these plants are ancient. Vetiver has been used since the time of the Babylonians for these purposes.
I've never even heard of vetiver.
I have.
So well, I believe you. I just,
And then these three...
I didn't think, Gwyn made it up or anything. And I don't know.
And a fake
legs. Yeah. Now, these three are also very good, obviously, for growing in your gardens, but basil is excellent as a container.
Yeah, it's a very good container plant.
Very good container plant. It does require full sun and not wet soil, but moist. Fennel is best grown from seed and then planted as soon as the ground is warm in spring. So it's not great to keep in a pot.
Container.
So you might want to actually invest in some fennel essential oil for year-round use. And then vetiver is actually adaptable to all soil types, and it can grow uphill. However, it does prefer warm climates, warm, humid climates. So again, vetiver is one of those.
Is vetiver one of those that's like considered a weed?
Yeah, it's a grass.
Hardy.
It's along the same lines as a lemongrass, so it's got kind of citrusy.
Can you eat vetiver?
I don't know.
Because we just had a question, is it safe around toddlers?
That's a really good question, and I will let you know.
Fen Ashburn.
I will let you know about that. I will look a little
Fen, we know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
So.
But thank you. That's an excellent question. I will look to see if vetiver is something that's safe for animals
for consumption.
And children and consumption. But otherwise, I would recommend having the essential oils around.
Right.
For
It's
those
certainly
plants
easier
that you can't grow.
Certainly easier to keep them out of hands of small children if you put them on a tall shelf.
Exactly. All right. So that is what I have today.
That's it for Gwyn's Garden Gems.
He keeps raising the octave.
He does, yeah. Eventually he's going to end up in a falsetto, and then where will he be?
Well, he tried that once, and it was just no.
No, it was no good. It was bad.
That was no good. Might want to bring it back down to the baritone level.
That's it for Gwyn's Garden Gems.
Oh, nice.
It was nice, yeah.
Lower than a baritone.
Yep.
The wrap-up for this episode?
Yeah, I think just the thing I wanted to sort of bring home is that although these practices are used, you mostly see them referenced in terms of like prep for ritual and downtime from ritual and for spell work and stuff like that. They are like super good to just do
for emotional
in your
and
day.
Spiritual health.
Like what I would recommend actually is to like go through, and maybe this is something you have to build up to because especially when you're starting out, it can take a while to get centered. It can take a while to feel grounded. But once you are comfortable with that procedure, I recommend just doing it like when you get up in the morning.
Okay. Let me just say, though, in Christendom, when I was involved in that,
Right.
I sucked at morning devotionals. Right?
See, this isn't a devotional thing, though. It's like getting up and stretching, or
And
like
I think
I know,
also,
but my hardest thing is like I get up and I'm not really awake, and then I go
Right.
spend an hour
here's
sitting around
my-
before I wake up. Yeah,
here's
go ahead.
my interjection into this. I think it depends on what time feels best for you. The point is just to make it a practice.
Right, yeah. You can do it in the car.
Yeah, do it in the car on the way to work. Do it.
I'll make a slight caveat.
Make sure your eyes are open.
Yes, but no, slight caveat. In my experience, if I have been grounded and I haven't broken the grounding, like I haven't undone the branching and rooting.
Uprooted?
Yeah, if I haven't uprooted and debranched before I start moving around, I start to feel really like I haven't properly realigned, even after I do like stage 2 grounding, like eat things, feel things.
Right.
See, I don't have that issue.
Yeah, and I think it's just because of the volume of energy. For whatever reason, it is better for me, for my like engagement with reality, to like go through a full process of closing those grounding stages at the end. So if you're like me and like moving around and being active after you ground and haven't closed the grounding afterwards is not great for you, just do the centering and shielding. You don't have to do all of these at the same time.
That's right. And my point is, find the time of day that's best for you, whether it's when you get up, whether it's you're looking after children during the day, you're at work, during a break at work.
And if you don't want to do it every day, you don't have to.
And you don't have to.
But it's useful to learn to be able to do it like sort of very quickly at a moment's notice, so that in a high stress situation, you can just knock one out and feel better.
I worked at a call center, and on days when I became incredibly stressed, if I had at least 1 minute between calls, I would do a quick centering and grounding.
Yep.
Because it helped my overall emotional state. And I would put out a shield, just my own little personal shield, to get me through that day. And again, my point is, find the time that works best for you. And that can be late at night if you're a night person. It can be before you go to bed. I tend to prefer to meditate in the mornings and in the evenings, or shift between the two. So pick what time works best for you and I would say start with meditation and work from there, because meditation and visualization are all a part.
But grounding, centering, and shielding you can do without engaging in a full meditation.
You can also just meditate without engaging doing a full meditation. So we have different views on this, obviously. Because I believe in walking meditation, where you can actually walk and be present in where you are. And I think you can do the same thing with grounding, shielding, and centering.
Okay, I just think they don't have to be tied together. I think you can do grounding, shielding, and centering all in isolation with or without meditation.
And this is, again, where we differ.
Yep.
So it's just one of those things. And you go with what works best for you, or what is common in your tradition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, always check with your own elders first. Don't trust us.
Check with your elders. Check with your elders. And if you're an eclectic pagan,
check with yourself.
Check with yourself what works best for you.
And actually, check with your elders and then check with yourself. And if your elders and yourself disagree, maybe assess whether they should be your elders.
Right, exactly. And it really all does come down to what works best for you as an individual. Because, again, as we mentioned before, if it works well for one person, it's not necessarily going to work well for you.
Yep.
All right, well, that's it. I think we've ended on a completely contentious note.
We're just agreeing to disagree. We're just acknowledging that we have different stances on this issue.
There's actually no animosity or upsetness. It's just we're different people.
Gwyn and I do this all the time.
There's way different between animosity and upsetness.
And contention.
Well, that's true. So, but I think
contention is just disagreement.
Right.
And Gwyn and I disagree a lot.
Well, there's a reason why we have these podcasts.
Yeah.
Just because this used to happen every day.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
especially because there was
a mic in front of it and contain it to one day.
Yeah, there was a time when Gwyn was officially training me in witchcraft, and we had these discussions
all the time,
and they would go on for hours, and it would take months to resolve them. And that's why Gwyn is no longer training me. Well, because I checked with my elder and I checked with myself, and I concluded that Gwyn should not be my elder.
Exactly. And that's because we are coming from very different points of view and very different spiritual,
different personal paths, different perspectives.
And so it's hard to bring that together. Now we come together in ritual and for celebration with a lot of ease. And there's a lot of things we agree on.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we agree on, and we're able to sort of exchange information like this and sort of incorporate each other's studies. But we have those disagreements, those sort of fundamental disagreements.
And I think the most important part, and I think this is why these things work for us, is because it's not my way or the highway. It's just Ode's way is different from mine, and that's perfectly fine. We just view it or understand things differently, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. That's why we're pagans.
That's why we're pagans. Exactly.
If we needed an ultimate authority, we would be doing something else.
Yeah, we already have. No, we've been there, done that.
All right, so I think that's everything we wanted to talk about this episode.
Just a reminder that Ode and I are going to be at the Witches' Tea in Flint. On October 11.
From 6 to 9, I think.
From 6 or 7 to 9. I think somewhere in there.
Yeah,
but
you can look it up on their Facebook.
Yeah, look it up on the Facebook. We've shared it on 3 Pagans and a Cat. I can't even remember who I am now.
Pagans? 3 pagans and a cat. We're going back to pagans.
3 pagans and a cat.
3 pagans and a cat. On the page. There are still a few tickets available. They're $25 a piece, and it looks like it's going to be a great evening. I know we're looking forward to doing it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I've never done reading in public before, so
Ode is going to be reading the tarot. I'm going to be doing pendulum readings. It'll be good.
All right, that's it for 3 Pagans and a Cat podcast today.
He's ending on radio voice. This is new.
That's because we're 3 families and 3 family members, 3 families.
We're what?
3 entirely different families.
3 totally separate fams.
You're looking at me going, woman, what's wrong with you? Man, what's wrong with you?
We are Three family members embroiled in wildly divergent traditions. Wow, forget it. So we're three pagans and a cat.
He's trying to finally get together an outro, and it's not working.
It's not working.
So
people.
guess what? You can find us on
Three Pagans and a Cat
on Facebook. That's 3-pack. That's 3PAAC.
Oh, God.
3-pack. You can find us also on the Twitter thing. That's 3_pagans.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you can find us on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. We have a YouTube channel.
Yep. So you can just do a search on that because I don't want to read you like channel UCJG, whatever it is. We're also on Google Plus as 3 Pagans and a Cat. We have been forever. I just never talk about it.
We are now on
no one on Earth
Instagram.
uses it.
Oh, you're on Instagram.
Well, it's sort of us. I put it as 3 Pagans.
It's you. It's you.
Gwyn is now on Instagram. Feel free to find her there.
And I also have my own page now for services, for spiritual readings.
On Facebook. Mm-hmm. So we'll make sure that we link to that on our regular Facebook page if we haven't already, because I don't pay enough attention to the Facebook page.
We have a Discord that you can get to through the website.
Of which there are still 2 people listening.
Yep.
Woo!
And we have a Patreon that you can also get to through the website. And
that is correct.
And we
have
love
a Red,
our patrons.
We do. We have a Redbubble if you want to wear stuff with our logo on it.
That's right.
Good thing it's not with our faces.
No, not with our
you
faces.
don't
Just
want
with our
that.
logos.
Just with our logos.
Yeah.
So if you want that on
Our
a mug,
avatars.
yeah, if you want that on a mug or whatever, you can get that on Redbubble.
I want a mug.
Of course.
You want a mug. I'm not surprised. I'm deeply unsurprised. And then I think that's everything. I think that's our whole internet presence.
I believe so. I
Probably.
believe we've managed to cover everything that we're a part of.
Excellent.
Yes, we have.
All right. Well,
So I guess that's it.
yeah. Peace out.
Are we done?
I think
so.
we've covered everything. Your outro is a pipe dream that will never be
needs
achieved. So
We are 3 family members embroiled in
wildly divergent
paths.
traditions. Yeah. Three paths, one journey, no cat. I think that was the tagline.
That was it. Yep. Okay. Well, whatever. See ya.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Pagans and a Cat. Find out more information at www.3pagansandacat.com.